Kenya is reeling from a day of violence and bloodshed as protesters stormed parliament on Tuesday, demanding the government scrap a controversial tax plan that would increase the cost of living. At least 22 people were killed and over 300 injured, according to the Kenyan National Human Rights Commission. The protests, led by youth, have united Kenyans beyond tribal and political divisions, posing a significant challenge to President William Ruto's government. The tax plan, aimed at raising revenue to pay off debt, would increase taxes and fees on essential items and services, exacerbating the economic struggle of most Kenyans. The government's determination to push through the plan has sparked widespread anger and frustration, with many feeling betrayed by Ruto's broken promises of economic relief. The protests, which began peacefully, turned violent as police and soldiers responded with force, firing tear gas and live ammunitions. Clashes occurred in several communities beyond the capital, Nairobi, with reports of abductions and intimidation. The government has vowed to quash the unrest at whatever cost, while opposition leader Raila Odinga has called for dialogue and condemned the use of brute force against protesters. The international community, including the United States, has expressed deep concern over the violence and urged calm. Kenya's strategic partnership with the United States, highlighted by Ruto's recent state visit to Washington, has come under scrutiny as the country's democratic credentials are put to the test.
The ongoing protest in Kenya marks a turning point in the country's political landscape as a youth-led movement demands economic relief and an end to state corruption. The government's response thus far has been heavy-handed, and the situation remains volatile. As the world watches, Kenya leaders must choose between repression and dialogue, with the future of democracy and economic prosperity hanging in the balance. Meanwhile, Sudan's health sector is facing catastrophic consequences as the country's 14-month war continues to rage on. Hospitals and medical facilities are closed, damaged or burnt, leaving many without access to essential healthcare. Doctors warn that a few operating facilities may shut down due to limited resources and patients overcrowded. The conflict has killed over 14,000 people, wounded 33,000, and displaced over 11 million, creating the world's largest displacement crisis at the moment. The World Health Organization reports that 15 million people lack healthcare, and 70 to 80% of the health facilities are non-functional. Human rights experts accuse warring parties of using starvation as a war weapon, aiming warnings of imminent famine. Local efforts to respond to the hunger crisis are hindered by violence and targeted attacks on civil society and local respondents. Sudan's health sector is on the brink of collapse, with devastating consequences for millions of people. The international community must act urgently to address the humanitarian crisis, ensure access to healthcare, and hold warring parties accountable for their actions. The world cannot afford to stand by as Sudan plunges into further chaos and catastrophe, just as Amba.
Well, on Wednesday, the International Criminal Court in The Hague delivered a landmark verdict finding Hassan AG Abdoul Aziz guilty of war crimes and crimes against humanity. The former commissioner of the Islamic police during the occupation of Timbuktu by armed jihadist groups linked to Al-Qaeda was accused of perpetrating atrocities, including torture, rape, forced marriage, and public flogging during his tenure in 2012. The verdict was welcomed with relief by women's organization and civil society leaders in Mali who had gathered in Bamako to follow the trial live. Haidara Geneba, a leader of a women's organization, emphasized the importance of accountability, stated, "There is no impunity. We must punish because everything that has been done is inhumane." The ICC spokesperson Margot Tedesco explained that the sentence will be determined after input from legal representatives of victims and prosecutor's office and the defense. The guilty verdict against Hassan AG Abdoul Aziz marks a significant milestone in the pursuit of justice for victims of war crimes and crimes against humanity in Mali. The ICC's decision sends a strong message that perpetrators of such atrocities will be held accountable, and it offers hope for justice and reparation to the victims and their families. As the sentencing process unfolds, the international community must continue to support efforts to combat impunity and ensure that those responsible for human rights violations face the full weight of the law.